Greetings, everyone. I'm excited to welcome Paul Dudley, co-founder and CEO at Streamkap. Paul, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Ben. Yeah, appreciate you having me on.
Yeah, great to have you here. Let's dive right in. Tell us a little bit about your background.
So yeah, I've been in working in SaaS companies my whole career. I started out as an analyst at a company that's been through yes, a couple of pivots and acquisitions. It's now part of a company called Quid, but there were a few different stops along the way to get there. And yeah, I ended up kind of moving into like the sales side of things there. Ultimately, led sales as we started to scale that business up. And then I was at Brightedge for a long time and was there sort of scaling from like 4 to 100 million in revenue. And, it took me overseas I started out in Silicon Valley but ended up running sales in Europe for Brightedge for a number of years. So I spent some time overseas there and then I went to go work for my now co-founder at a SaaS data platform company he founded called Avora that ultimately didn't work out, but it was kind of the start of the Streamkap journey. We did initially a spin out from that company doing batch ETL, and we sold that in 2022. And it was at Avora, his company, and at the batch ETL company where we saw more people doing streaming and hearing from folks on data teams that they were spending months getting to production data pipelines, and that's really the problem we set out to solve with Streamkap. So yeah, we started the company in 2022.
Okay, appreciate the background. So kind of that startup life, met your co-founder, now working as a co-founder.
Yeah.
And so yeah, let's talk about Streamkap. What products and or services does Streamkap offer?
Yeah. So we're streaming ETL, and the key value proposition we have is helping get folks moving data faster. Is kind of the simple way to think about it, right? So often they're using batch processes for ETL. So that stands for extract, transform, and load for those folks who are not in the data space. But basically, it means you're getting data from different disparate systems into generally like a central data warehouse. So something like Snowflake. And traditionally, that's been done with batch processing, which means you're doing it once a day or once an hour or something like that. And if you look at that, how that kind of converges with what consumer experiences are moving towards, which is much more real time, you start to run into some challenges. So if you think about like Uber, for example, or even Uber Eats is the best, I think, maybe example here, where you have three different parties where you need data in real time, right? As the consumer, you're ordering, a meal and you want to see where it is in real time, right? It wouldn't be helpful for you to get an update an hour later that your order's been submitted and all this stuff, right? You expect it to be delivered in that time. And then that would be even more problematic for the people who actually have to, create to make that meal and pick it up. And so it's super important to be able to like coordinate all of those pieces with real time data. So traditionally, Uber, is a huge company with a huge engineering team, and they've been able to build and manage like streaming architecture themselves. But a lot of companies want to be able to provide those kind of experiences and don't have huge engineering teams. So what Streamkap does is make streaming very accessible in the way that batch data processing had been with the sort of modern data stack. Folks are familiar to that.
Yeah, appreciate that explanation because I was really curious about the whole streaming ETL process because I know ETL way back when implementing TM1, which became Cognos, and then IBM and all that stuff, where like you tell the admin, it's like, hey, run that ETL process, right? We need the latest financial data loaded into our FP&A tool.
Yeah.
But really, you're saying now, instead of those delays, are we run that batch process every 24 hours or hour now? It's more on a real time basis to pull all
Yeah.
that disparate data together into whatever application that we need it in.
Yeah, exactly. And I think like there have been streaming systems and event driven systems that have been around for a long time with like transaction processing and things like that. But it traditionally was something where, if you asked a data person about it, they would say like, okay, do you really need it? Right. And certainly there are cases, I think increasingly where you really do. But, one of the things that's really shifted and I think that DreamCap is helping to shift is that now it's, if you had the choice of like, could you get real time data and it's less expensive and less and no more complex than batch, then there's sort of no reason why you wouldn't want to do that, right? And so that's a shift that we're starting to see is like people are moving more towards that. We're not all the way there. Like that's an evolution that's going to take time. Like for the most part, our customers are using Snowflake as their data warehouse, and that's not a real time system. They're getting better at moving data faster. But what we've seen is they traditionally like the rate limiting step in that system was their ETL tool. And now they can replace that with Streamkap. Our latency is sub-second. So basically there's no, no latency from a practical standpoint from our part of it. And then they can just decide like within Snowflake, like how fast do they want to go. And that's essentially, just a knob of how much do you want to spend in Snowflake. But the actual cost of loading the data is lower than it was with batch. So it's like the piece that we own is both less expensive and faster. So it's kind of a no brainer for folks who want to do that.
Oh yeah, it makes a ton of sense. And so, talk about ideal customer profile. What industries are you after? Are you targeting certain industries first?
Yeah, so we work a fair amount with payments and point of sale, logistics, fleet management. I would say, like broadly, it's cases where you have a direct customer interface. So you have kind of a customer facing analytical workload or an operational workload. So something where it's not. I guess another way to say that is like a lot of data processing is for like internal business intelligence or financial reporting, and I think generally that you have less hard requirements for real time there. But if it's going out and it's powering some kind of automated system that's customer facing, or if it's operational, like within logistics or on the manufacturing floor, things like that, that latency actually really does matter and has a real impact. And so that's where we tended to focus. Like as much as I do think there's like a broader theme of think moving towards real time, we're definitely focused on industries where they have, a real business value and getting things faster and have like seen a good fit there.
Okay, so industry focus, not just going for everybody who raises their hand. It sounds like, and like who are you after within these? Like, say in transport or logistics, who are you trying to reach out to? Who are you trying to find in there to pitch your product?
Yeah. I mean, generally it's data engineering teams.
Mhm.
So there are folks who know these problems very well. And, there's kind of two buckets that we see of like I guess, a bit of company history. Like either they maybe have tried to build, a streaming infrastructure with open source solutions like Kafka and Flink, which are very popular. We're actually built on top of those, but generally that's something that's very complex to manage. And so you need a big team to manage it. And so what happens there is often very long time to value, a lot of operational overhead. And so we can just make that process much easier for them. It goes from months to minutes of deployment time. And then the other pattern is like people who are, sort of at the edge of what they can do with their batch systems and they need streaming, but maybe they don't have the team to even to attempt to try their own streaming infrastructure. So that's kind of the pattern we see in terms of what folks are the pain, I guess, that they're experiencing.
And so, does this lend itself then to you're talking to larger companies, enterprise? If they have data engineering teams, all these disparate data sources need data more in real time. Then,
Yes. I mean, we've worked with a couple of startups, but for the
Mhm.
most part, startups don't have that scale of data. I mean, there's other reasons why, we're not as focused on startups in terms of stability of the business and what have you. But yeah, we've seen a good fit in mid-market and small enterprise. We got interest and we have a couple of larger enterprise customers. Just from a very practical standpoint, I would focus as much on that because, we're still relatively early stage. So I think mid market and small enterprise has a good combination of like having the requirements, having money to spend on this, and also moving a little bit faster than large enterprise.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. And let's talk some facts and figures then. So you said you founded the company in 2022, right?
That's right. Yeah,
Okay. And then do you guys have an HQ location?
it's San Francisco, but we're remote. I'm based in San Francisco myself, but our team is distributed. We've got folks here in the U.S. My co-founder is actually in London, and we got a couple of folks in the UK and Eastern Europe and Asia.
Okay. Okay. So virtual, pretty common, obviously. So, and then what's your current team size?
There are 10 of us today.
10. Okay. And then I know you don't want to talk ARR or revenue ranges right now, but anything about the sense of scale right now? Are you revenue generating, pre-revenue? Tell us where you are
Yeah,
in your journey.
yeah, we're revenue generating. We've got, customers using us in production, at significant scale. And, I think our, big focus today is, just adding more customers. So product is generally available and scaling up.
Okay, so GA got customers using production, which leads me a great way to ask this next question about finding more customers. So tell us a little bit about your go-to-market motion. Then, how are you finding certain channels that are better than others to land prospects?
Yeah. So we've been doing a kind of combination of like content generation across like our website and, LinkedIn, in particular with outbound. So, in the early days, I was doing all of that myself. And then, I think about half of our customers were from outbound and half come from inbound. We've written some, we're solving some fairly specific technical problems and written about that. And so we get some decent amount of inbound around that. Started to do a little bit of advertising in the past couple months as well. And recently hired a sales leader who's kind of picking up some of that outbound effort.
Okay, yeah, with your sales background, you could implement that outbound process, and then I'm guessing on the content generation side and inbound with these data engineering teams and probably the complexity of this. This is something that they're probably searching for then versus others where it's like they don't even realize they have a problem or this product exists, but they're actually maybe searching for solutions.
That's right. Yeah. So, people want to stream data from Oracle to Snowflake, right? And like that's a discrete requirement that they have. And, I think there's some subtle nuance about like what's the terminology you use, within that context. But like at the end of the day, like I think our customers, generally know that they need to get data from, whatever database source or other sources that they have into, their data warehouse, let's say, with low latency. And so, again, there's a little bit of subtle phrasing differences there, but like, we're not creating a brand new category that people, don't understand the fundamental.
Yeah, it seems like you could get some nice SEO because I'm guessing there's some very specific terms, like you mentioned, to
Yeah,
write a post about that and bring that in. So I love that.
exactly. Yeah. One of the companies I worked at for a long time was an SEO platform. So that was one of the things that we started investing in right from the beginning was like, writing technical content that talks about solving those specific problems. And yeah, there's a nice structure of keywords that you can go after in that context.
Yeah, definitely. So appreciate that insight. And let's talk to fundraising. So how much capital have you raised to date now?
$3.3 million.
Okay, 3.3. And it looks like that was characterized generally as a pre-seed round.
We did a pre-seed and a seed.
Okay, so that was pre-seed and seed combined. Okay. All right. And then so where did that happen in your journey? Because you said founded in 2022. So when did that raise happen?
Yeah, so we raised pre-seed in 2022 actually,
Okay.
and that was really, you know, very. It was a little more than just an idea. We actually had customers within, like our first customer we signed within a month, and yeah, what we did was we started with like the core deliverable we have is can you get data from A to B, right? And so our first couple of customers, that was what we did, right? They didn't have a user interface. It was just like, we had the infrastructure and as long as the data showed up in their BigQuery or Snowflake, then yeah, they were okay with that, right? As beta customers. And then that was kind of the basis on which like we had the idea, the sense of the market that we raised that pre-seed round. And then that closed in late 2022. And then it was on that we, then went through kind of a beta period in 2023, added a few more customers, got some more, production use cases, and got to a place where the product was really ready to start to scale and getting to a GA product, and then raised the seed on that basis really to start to kind of prove out product market fit.
Yeah, it's always interesting that journey. And so with that pre-seed round, what did you want to use that capital for?
So it was mainly getting the product to a place where users could self-serve. And that was kind of the key goal. Like from a user experience perspective, it's not like it's particularly complex product. Essentially a user just what they want to be able to do is authenticate the connection to a source database and authenticate a connection to a destination. There's a lot of complexity that sits underneath that, but like the actual actions that you need to take are relatively simple. So that was kind of the big thing was, making sure we had an interface that allowed people to do that. And then we started to build some of the bells and whistles around it with that money as well, of like metrics and monitoring and things like that, which are also important in our world for sure. But yeah, getting to that sort of, you know, first level of like requirements for a GA product, essentially.
Okay. And then, like you said, beta period 2023, had some customers, then the seed round. And then tell us then the seed round, like what was the trigger for the seed round?
Yeah, I think it was like, okay, we've got some early signal on product market fit. We weren't, we were charging our customers. We didn't have particularly meaningful revenue, but we had the signal that like we were doing something that was solving a real problem for them. So it was like, okay, like we can start to invest a little bit in scaling up go to market, and then also we had some areas that we wanted to expand out the product as well. So those were kind of the key things that we were saying, like we were ready to start doing this stuff. And yeah, I think the validation that we had from that, larger set of beta customers at that point was sufficient to, help support that case and, demonstrate to investors that we had something that was going to be investable from that perspective.
Yeah, I love that insight. I love that journey. And so thinking back on the 2 years that, the pre-seed, now the seed, and for other founders listening, thinking about either pre-seed or seed, any lessons learned that are kind of any sharp memories in that process that you'd like to pass along to other founders thinking about a seed raise?
I mean, one thing is definitely like we were talking to and working with customers very early on. And, I think that was I don't know, I guess something we never had any doubts about that being the right thing, but I definitely, I think that is, something that sometimes, especially more technical founders, you kind of might fall in love a little bit more with the solution or with technology than the solution. And, so I think just staying really close to customers is super important. Right. And that's where you can make sure that you're not working on just a science experiment and it's something that's really adding value. And, I think I would say maybe one of the challenges, like maybe the hardest thing that we've had to face that if part come out of all that conversation with customers is also prioritization, right? So there's like in our world, there's a lot of surface area of things we could do. And, when a customer is telling you that they would buy something, it's very difficult to, especially very early on, it's very difficult to say, to say no to that. And I won't say that we were perfect in that by any means, but that's the big thing that continues to be a big focus for us is just like making sure we're prioritizing our focus on the right things that are, kind of not just chasing every, potential avenue, but, kind of aligning customer demand and our strategy and making sure we're focused on the right areas.
And it's a great, really interesting because you said easy to fall in love with the tech, versus the solution. So, and this could be hard to answer, but like, how did you stay focused, say, with your product roadmap? And just so right, it's easy to have shiny objects and chase all these different ideas and thoughts. But any insight on how you stayed focused with pushing the product roadmap forward?
Yeah, I mean, I think he was looking at like our immediate customer demand and our expectation of customer demand. So I guess a little snapshot of like when we first started the company, part of the inspiration was talking to our customers at the previous data companies I mentioned, but part of it was also meeting with potential partners at companies like ClickHouse and Rockset and StarTree, which are maybe not super familiar names to folks, but Rockset was in the news recently because they got bought by OpenAI, but they're all like real-time databases. So they were potential partners of ours. They would be destinations where we would send data. And part of our vision of creating the company was, in the Snowflake world, there's a batch ETL provider called Fivetran that's a big partner of theirs. And Snowflake and Fivetran really grew together. They were a very like good match. And so, our kind of initial thesis was, well, we can be like Fivetran, but for the real-time world, right? And, one of the things that, and I think we did see that opportunity early on. And so we had these opportunities to work with partners in that space, but we felt like it felt like very good, like co-marketing opportunities, but it just wasn't clear that the actual customers were there yet, because that space was early. And then what we were hearing from folks was, hey, I've got Snowflake, I've got BigQuery. Can you just help me get data into those faster? And then we, taking a step back, this seems obvious in retrospect, but like those real-time databases, like some have grown pretty well in the past couple of years, but ClickHouse, for example, at that time didn't yet have like a generally available cloud offering, right? And so it was a popular open source project, but the cloud was going to be relevant for us. And so sort of we're looking at it like, well, actually Snowflake obviously has a huge number of customers. So we're probably much better off like focusing on where there's a bunch of people who already have this need, they already have the architecture in place, and we can plug in very simply, and we give them a big benefit of moving data faster in that existing infrastructure, rather than anchoring ourselves to this new emerging space where there isn't a lot of adoption yet. And I think from like a marketing and buzz perspective in that world, we could have been a bigger fish in a smaller pond, but you know, and I do think, by the way, that is growing. And I think it is an opportunity for us, but it just quite clear now that like focusing in the area we did with partnering with like Snowflake and others was the right decision, because that's where the customers were.
Yep.
And we can always come back to the to the real time space as it grows.
Yeah, so focus on that current need. So appreciate that insight. So Paul, at this stage of the business, maybe not about 2 years in, or maybe not quite, but do you have a favorite number or metric that you're focused on right now to guide the business?
Yeah. So, I mean, I care a lot about our revenue, as a key element, but I'd say, I spend more time thinking about pipeline than I do about the current revenue. We have big growth goals, and that's really where that revenue is. The revenue is a lagging indicator, right? Of what you need to do. And again, my background's in sales, and so you gotta put the work in at the top of the funnel, and before you get to the end results.
Yeah, yeah, the pipeline, right? That's going to generate revenue. So big pipe we all love. So Paul, really appreciate the time today. As we wrap up, what's coming up next for Streamcap?
Yeah, so we got a bunch of new content and things like that coming out. Customer case studies are a big focus for us right now. Kind of getting good word out from a customer perspective. We've got some big product stuff coming. One of the big elements that we're adding to the platform is transformations, which is something that folks in the data world care a lot about. And then, yeah, looking into next year, looking at probably raising another round.
Okay, so yeah, another round coming up. Well, appreciate the journey and the insight and sharing your experience, Paul. If listeners would like to learn more about Streamcap, where should we send them online?
Streamcap.com is a good place to start, or I'm on LinkedIn. So I'm Paul Dudley on LinkedIn. So
All right, perfect. And you said .com, so Streamcap, and that's with a K,
yes,
AP.com.
yes, that's on the shirt. I
On
don't
the
know.
shirt. So if you're
Yeah,
watching the video right now, you can see it
yeah,
on the shirt. Well, again, Paul, yeah, exciting journey so far. Yeah, I love the ETL process. Used to, do that more on the batch side way back in the day with financial data. So yeah, I would love more real-time financial data today too. So appreciate you coming on and sharing your journey.
yeah. My pleasure. Thanks for having me on.
All right, thanks, Paul.